All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. It's all part of the Believe Network. A lot of great content on Believe. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. It's Mitch Michals here. More tennis talk as we gear up for final weekend of some interesting tournaments all over the world. Hard courts, clay, United States, Middle East, even South America. We've got a lot going on. Joining me now, VSIN writer, tennis.com bets writer, Tennis Bets Live correspondent as well, Zachary Cohen. You can find him on Twitter, on X, at Betting on X. Zico, welcome to the show. It kind of feels like a Tennis Bets Live post-match show, recapping to a crazy event just now. But thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. This has been an awesome week of tennis. I love when there's 4 tournaments going on. You can never get enough of it.
Yeah, and the biggest thing with this match this week too, and we've discussed it, February kind of used to be the month where I don't want to say it wasn't a lot going on, but we kind of overlooked. But yeah, there's a lot happening. There's storylines, there's action. The women and really men in these Middle East events, I feel like the competition's gotten better and the fields have gotten better. And this women's this women's tournament we're about to talk about in Doha, it's the best of the best. So you're getting literally the best players in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just such a big tournament, and you feel the importance for all the players. Obviously, Iga was going for 4 straight. Ostapenko said it's a special tournament, and, there was a lot of storylines here, especially, Jabeur kind of returning to form.
Yeah, it was a lot to get to. Start with this. We're recording this a little after 8 o'clock on the West Coast by me, so just within the hour, we saw really a warning shot at the field. Iga Swiatek out to Jelena Ostapenko. Zico, Ostapenko throttled her. 5-0 now head-to-head, which we can get to in a second. But just starting off with this match was insane. It was crazy. It started off similar to matches of the past, but when Ostapenko just starts hitting winners, when she starts going big and bold, it's the one player Iga just doesn't seem to have an answer for, doesn't like dealing with, and can never get into rhythm. That's what I kept coming back to, is there's no rhythm in an Ostapenko match for Iga.
Yeah, I think with Iga, I mean, she obviously wants to get into points, and then that's where she has her advantage. When, the longer the rally, she's going to figure out a way to win those points. But Ostapenko just doesn't give her a chance when she is hitting her spots with those winners. Like, there's just no way for Iga to really combat the power. And I thought that Iga served pretty poorly in the match. And obviously, there's a lot of on-court stuff in terms of strategy and, how Ostapenko's playing, but mentally as well. I just think that, Iga, we've seen, is a very anxious player. Most players really can't rattle her, but I do think that, playing kind of an alpha in Ostapenko who goes out there and really believes she's going to win just kind of gets to Iga and gets under her skin.
I'd have to go back and look. I can't think of a historical precedent like this where you have a number one player or former number one player, multi-time major, surefire Hall of Famer, against a player that's good, has a major championship, but has been fairly uneven. I think that's safe to say. That just owns her in the head-to-head. Like, there really is no precedent to this. And yeah, you say styles make fights all the time. Ostapenko goes so big that in a lot of matches, she takes herself out of it. There's no blueprint really to beat Iga. Like, you have to be on and you have to do extraordinary things. But this matchup and the way she plays is just not somebody. I think that kind of could speak to a bigger point, Zico, about variety on tour. There's the homogenous style that maybe players play the same way. When you have someone that goes against the grain, it's tough to prepare and tough to get ready. Even on the practice courts, you don't really have match toughness matches against players like this.
Yeah, and I believe I saw a stat that it's the only player with a winning record against Iga that has played her more than once. And I also heard after the match, Ostapenko in the post-match interview on the court pretty much said, like, I believed I was going to beat her. I thought I was going to win. I've done it before. So there's just a belief there that other players don't have against Iga. We've seen Iga take some more losses over the last few years, but consistently losing to this opponent it's shocking.
Yeah, going away in the second set too. We've talked about Iga when it goes wrong. She's very methodical. She's, and her plan A works against most people, but it doesn't work against Ostapenko. How would you try to flip this? Because again, she's, this was the first time she's lost here in a long time. Looked pretty good. The Keys match, I think we're both on the same page that Keys went and took that. So Iga's still playing great tennis, but is it just as simple as you just try to pray you don't have to play her? Like, how do you fix this specific problem for Iga?
She's got to figure out at some point. It's not just praying that you don't play her. I think that she needs to serve better. Like I just said, I think that she was serving, to the body a lot, and they were very inaccurate serves. So Ostapenko was just getting really good looks at returns. I think she needs to kind of, aim for corners a little bit more and just try to get a little bit more off the serve. And I just think that the mental game is going to be so important, because I do believe that as things start to go wrong for her, she starts to miss shots that we normally see her make. I don't think that you could really rush Iga on a slow court like this, but it does look like she's rushed, but I believe it's because she's pressing in her mind.
So we're still in a early-ish stage with her and Wim Fissette, the coach. So there's still the long-term viewpoint here. She's going to, from here, next big event, we'll see what her schedule is, but we got Indian Wells. She owns that tournament. It's slow hard court. It's perfect for her. Then we got the clay season. So I'm willing to just pause judgment on the long-term thing until we see her at these events she normally does well at. But yeah, the serving part of it is a key aspect. She has to get into a rhythm there. Of all the top players, and maybe it's a testament to just how dominant she is in the other areas of her game, but that's the one where it doesn't hold up. She doesn't seem to get a lot of free points on her serve. And when you're playing a player like Ostapenko, any point that you can get for free is a luxury.
Yeah, and I will say, I don't want to, judge the partnership too much, because I do think that she played her best Australian Open that we've seen from her in quite some time. And I know that people were saying that the speeds were slower than usual. Maybe that factored into things, but I thought she played really well up into the semifinals, and I thought she kind of played well in that Keys match. Keys just kind of, brought her A+ tennis when it mattered most. So I think that the early returns are somewhat promising, but they did say that they, did not work together until, I believe, the off season and the short off season.
Yeah, I'm still in the belief that 95% of the players she plays against, there's a comfort level, and that's the beauty of tennis, right? It's all about the draws and who you match up with. And it took Ostapenko, really had the issue, was just staring at a camera, upset at Hawkeye, had the match against Ana Jabor where it was a road match, and she's cheering or yelling at some fans and stuff, but she got ignited when she's on. It's like an anomaly. Like, it doesn't happen all the time, but when she's redlining, she's the best player in the world.
and it's kind of similar, the two wins, in that, Jabor is another player that wants to beat you with variety and with, the long term, like the longer points. And she just doesn't let you do it when she's hitting that cleanly. So I saw some similarities between the two matches, and just that, like you said, like when she is hitting those spots, she's very difficult to beat.
Yeah. So this is a player, and just the last thing on Ostapenko, like, we'll see what happens. Could be a lot of first round exits coming up. Also, if I was going to say, like, next 5 years, major champion, not crazy. You could see it happening. There's a world where she just gets hot and wins a major.
It's funny because it kind of reminds me of like the Premier League, where like the other day you saw Everton like draw against Liverpool in a big rivalry, and like that felt like their Super Bowl. It feels like, Ostapenko beating Iga is just like one of these random things. But if she's able to win this tournament, I mean, it'd be massive. It is a 1,000, so this would kind of make a year.
She's back in the final where she'll play, and we're recording while the other match is going on. Anisimova was up at the time of this recording, still up a little bit in the first set there, up a break against Alexandrova. Two different players that weren't supposed to essentially be here in the semifinals, but finding their best level. For Anisimova, she's another player similar to Ostapenko in that she hits the heck out of the ball, can give great players some problems, had some personal stuff to deal with, had some injuries to deal with. But seems like she's playing great. Seems like she's focused. And Zico, that match against Marta Kostyuk was an absolute war. Grinding that one out was a breakthrough in my mind, because it wasn't her best day. It wasn't her easiest day, and yet she found a way to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she's in a great place right now, mentally and physically. And I do think that, these slower hard courts are going to be really, just great for her moving forward, just because I do think she's a player that can rack up unforced errors when she kind of doesn't set her feet, and just makes a little bit like too many mistakes that you don't want to see her making on shots that are very makeable, but having the little bit of extra time, it just does a world of favor for her. So I think this is a really good tournament for her. Alexandrova is playing some great tennis, so if she does hold on to win this match, it'd be very, very impressive. And obviously Anisimova is a player that I believe has Grand Slam potential.
Yeah, teenager, I think 17, 18 when she made the Roland Garros semifinals. So still like in her early 20s, a lot of tennis played, but still a lot there if she can stay healthy. You play against Kostyuk, it's one of the elite athletes on tour, so you're not going to get to hit as many winners. And that was just impressive. Literally dying out there, ice everywhere, just crazy. But Hope to see Anisimova, another American, do well. Alexandrova, she comes in, wins a tournament, comes into this event, and then just knocks off Aryna Sabalenka. That to me was, and we can talk about Sabalenka, Zico maybe being rusty. It's tough to hit the court after a major, especially a major final loss. But Alexandrova showed that she can kind of neutralize some of the stuff that Sabalenka does, and I don't think there's many players on the WTA that can say that.
Yeah, absolutely. You just said it. She won 2 weeks ago, kind of in a field that was a little bit better than people think it was. She had a big win over Karolina Muchova in that tournament. I just think that she is such a strong player in terms of like the aggressive style of play she has from the baseline, that when she is kind of able to defend a little bit, she's very dangerous. And we kind of saw against Sabalenka, we saw it against Pegula. She dropped the first set of both of those matches and then kind of, steadied things out a little bit and made some adjustments. And when she is playing, striking a balance between aggressiveness and, not making bad mistakes, she is very, very dangerous. So not surprising to see her playing very well, but, what she has done at these 2 events in a row is very impressive.
Yeah, I think this is another player that should be comfortable getting into the second weeks of slams. And then, yeah, you're in the mix. This is another interesting event where we're going to have Alexandrova or Anisimova versus Ostapenko in the final. Do you have any worry about Sabalenka going forward? I know it's an interesting time for her. She's gone deep into a lot of events, so I think it's a little jarring that she loses early in any tournament.
I don't think so. I think that like we're seeing a little bit more of what we've seen in the years past, where you get a bad set or two and just she's bounced really quickly and you don't know what happens. But still think that she's the top 2 player on tour, and I think that we're going to see her win a slam or two this year. I'd be surprised if she doesn't win Wimbledon or the U.S. Open. I really think Wimbledon is going to be Sabalenka's tournament moving forward. I think she would have won it if she was healthy last year, and I think she'll get it this year.
Yeah, hasn't been allowed to play for a few years, wasn't healthy last year. Makes sense. And it's a weird one too, right? Because there's like no grass tournaments. And Tracy Austin told me once, it was like, it all comes together quickly because you never have any reps on it. So you go from never making a final weekend to a champion.
Yeah,
So,
and it's tough because I wish grass season was a little bit longer. I wish we had 2 months of it, but man, I just think that like we've seen her completely out hit players on faster hard court surfaces. So it's going to eventually happen where she does it on grass, and I would guess it happens 2 or 3 times at the very least.
it was good to see Anja Jabeur back playing at a high level. Again, these tournaments can be relentless, and she might have very well lost to the champion of this event. So love to see her back. Love to see her healthy. We know, I mean, we should mention there's a lot going on with Rybakina right now, and there's still a lot to kind of process with that, but she's still a top player in the mix. I think that's the part of this that's so strange and sad, and whatever adjective or word you want to put, Zico, but this is a player going through stuff, WTA investigation, her coach's suspension still upheld, but she's still a top player very much in the mix for these big tournaments.
Yeah, it's a strange situation, and she herself seems like very calm and like bubbly, honestly. So it's weird to see that she's going through so much off the court. Hopefully, they are able to figure that out. It's a player that I thought had a really good chance of winning the Australian Open, and I think she's going to be a factor at majors moving forward. But it would be nice to see this kind of stabilize a little bit, because I do think that she let a very good coach in Goran Ivanisevic walk away, and now with Vukov suspended, you really wish that they found a way to make that partnership work.
Yeah, it's a lot to process for any athlete, let alone one of the best, trying to contend for titles. Other tournaments this week wanted to get your thoughts on. We got the event in Buenos Aires, clay court tennis. Always fun to watch clay, even though the Golden Swing is at an interesting time in the calendar. And we talked last show about what happens in the future of this event, the surface of it, but some great, exciting stuff. There's there's two dueling stories right now. We'll talk about both, one being the young gun, one being the vet that said goodbye. The young gun, Joao Fonseca. This is, can I say, a movement? Like, this is starting to be a real thing. Like, it's not just a flash in the pan. I don't think a lot of us thought it would be, but he goes to South America, plays on the clay, the event that really introduced him to the world last year. He looks incredible. And the way he hits his shots, specifically that forehand, Zico, it's like another specimen playing tennis. This is something special. I think we all kind of know that we're on the beginning of a long ride.
Yeah, I think it was last year that he broke out, like you said. I think we all kind of realized, yeah, this guy should not be playing college tennis. That was kind of the first step in the development. But then a few months went along, and it's like, all right, maybe we're looking at the bigger threat to the Sinner and Alcaraz top two right now, looking forward for the next 10 to 15 years. It's just really fun to watch him play. Like there are not a lot of players in this world that are like Yannick Sinner, but man, they are very very similar. Just the weight of shot, like the ease with which they can find power, and just kind of the overall, just I don't know, the balance that they have to their games. Like there's just not a lot of weaknesses there. I actually pulled Sinner's final challenger season. He went 28-7 and won 3 titles. Hold percentage 79.4%, break percentage 32.7. They're not that different, the numbers, compared to Fonseca. Fonseca a little worse, 28-14, but won 2 titles. Hold percentage was 80.6 and break percentage is 28.8. So just two players that were holding, at a nice rate, getting into their opponent's serve. And
Yeah.
I think Fonseca had a better first year on tour while they were kind of, playing both challengers on ATP events.
Right. And he had the huge win over Rublev, which again,
Yep.
I keep coming back to. The betting public and the general public were kind of almost expecting him to win that match. That's an insane spot to be in. Like you hadn't done it yet, and he still did it. So he showed a lot of maturity there. Losing his next match wasn't that shocking. For me, it's more the off-court stuff right now. How is he processing becoming literally famous right now? Like he's going through a lot. Like you see the crowds love him. He's got his own cheering section. It's lovely to see. But how he processes that, and then how he processes taking his lumps on tour. That was not just him, maybe Jacob Mensick, other players. I've been impressed by this new generation, whatever we're calling them, their ability to handle tough losses with class, with pride, and get back to work. So, like Sinner, it's going to be a couple years. I would say, I mean, conservatively, we can always guess on this. 2027, maybe that's when it's like, okay, now he's a real major contender. I think these next 2 years he'll be fun. He'll be exciting. I could be well wrong, but it's going to take a while, similar to Sinner, to really become a major contender. How he handles the process of taking his lumps, which I expect will be very well.
Yeah, and like we like to talk about betting a little bit, and we were both liked Sinner to win that Australian Open as his first major. Maybe we target that 2027 Australian Open for fun's sake. I will say, like, I completely agree with you when you just see how he responds to the fame. Like, it is interesting seeing, the Brazilian fans really love him and they are traveling to events to see him. But I also think, the off court work needs to be there in terms of his body, because I think that, he could have made a run at the Australian Open if he didn't, play some lengthy matches that got to him physically. And I think early in his career so far, we have seen that longer matches, 3 hours or so, the following match, he does not really show up. He doesn't wear it quite the same way that Sinner does. You don't see, limping around or anything, but I do think that he is going to have to just kind of work on his endurance a little bit. But that comes with being, an 18-year-old on the ATP tour. Like he's not really, used to being a professional yet. He's going to get there very soon.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think there's going to be a process here. As great as he is, right? That's why top 40. And people are like, how could you undersell him? Like it takes a lot to be good. And it takes a lot week in, week out, which is why ranking goals are almost as important as slam goals for a lot of these players, because it proves you're consistent and you're there for the long haul. That said, it's fun to see him playing against Argentinians too. We're getting the South American flavor down there too. Other player that I wanted to mention, the veteran, it was Diego Schwartzman's last tournament. Speaking of Argentinians, goes out to Pedro Martinez, beats Nicolas Jarry. I think that was pretty cool. I mean, you can start there, right, Zico? Like he got one last big win before retiring. To do it at a home tournament, which isn't a luxury a lot of players have, having an event in your home country to begin with. But Diego Schwartzman accomplished a lot, given where he was and given the hand he was dealt, not being the biggest guy, to do what he did, to be a top 10 player at his size. Unbelievable to me.
Yeah, and I think you could add on to that a fitting way to do it against one of the giants of the sport with a huge serve. He just went out and outgrinded him, because that's what he did his entire career. I think Schwartzman is just such a good player that maximized everything that he had. I know he doesn't really like the way we talk about that. I think that, in that essay he wrote for ATP Tour, he doesn't really like to be viewed as like the overachiever type. He just likes to think that he went out there and played great tennis, powerful tennis. But man, it is great to watch a smaller player like that just have a great career. And I'll never really forget in 2020 when he beat Rafael Nadal in Rome, I believe in straight sets, on the way to a great run at a 1000, and also beat Dominic Thiem at the French Open that year. Just a whirlwind of a year.
Well, I get it, and he put his heart and soul into it, and he doesn't want to be viewed as an overachiever because that speaks a little poorly. What I will say, and you can go to the metrics on this, as a server was near the bottom of the barrel for top tour players. That's the overachieving part.
Yeah.
Without a weapon on the serve to still be competing. So some of those matches, even the ones he lost, like he gave Nadal fits. He was able to play very elite tennis. His movement was great. And yeah, region of the world that hadn't had a lot of success, especially when Delpo got injured. It was up to him to carry the mantle, and I thought he did a good job. And just how popular he was. We talk about that too. Like you see the number of people on tour, your peers. That's probably the best way to judge respect and how you're viewed. The amount of people that reached out that played with him and against him. I think that's the biggest thing.
Absolutely. And like to talk about just how impressive it is of a physical feat for him to be as good as it was. There's a reason he's retiring this young. It's because it's just so difficult for him at this point to win matches just as he just loses a little bit athletically. So it was just a great career. It was a nice way to see him go out. And there was like a full on love fest from the crowd too.
We got more Zachary Cohen here on the Inside In Tennis podcast. We're talking all things tennis this month into February, Golden Swing, Delray Beach, Doha for the women, Marseille even for the men. They're playing everywhere. Sticking with the Golden Swing for a little bit though, Zico, we saw some interesting results. We actually saw brother versus brother, the Cerundolos going against each other, where Francisco won, which was to be expected. But yeah, always good to get the siblings up there and playing against each other.
Yeah, it's very, very rare. Big Brother did beat him down a little bit, and I am really interested in what we have not yet seen what's going to happen in this Cerundolo-Zverev match later today, but I believe that the winner of that match has a really good shot at winning this tournament. Obviously, if it's Zverev, you feel really good about it, but would be nice to see Francisco Cerundolo potentially win this home tournament.
You had that. You also had really another one was Navone defeat. We could have got Holger and Fonseca, but we're getting Navone and Fonseca. So again, Navone, and you've been on him too. Like Argentinian, loves to play here. Last was I think a year ago around this time when he really introduced himself. Not a bad player at all. Yep. Holger, though, it always seems like there's something maybe missing, or maybe it's luck or a combination. He tweeted out that he was sick again, so that was there. But he was in that match to me until he got upset with the crowd. So there's that part of it too. He said the crowd was saying some bad things to him. He can't speak back to them because he's a pro tennis player in the umpire's words. But he's so close to kind of that breakthrough, whatever you want to call it. But maybe he's so far from that breakthrough as a result.
Yeah, I think the mental game is going to be very, very important because I do think that, in terms of on-court ability, like he should be there already. I think that the forehand is still a little shaky, but in terms of serve and backhand, like there are not many players in the world that have that type of combination. So once he kind of, consistently can hit that forehand a little bit bigger without, just kind of mechanical breakdowns, he's going to be a player that can compete at slams. But yeah, getting involved with the crowd, that only really works for one guy, and his name is Novak Djokovic. Yeah. So you just don't really want to see him egg people on, or, maybe he's not being, egging them on, but I think he enjoys getting into it with them a little too much for a player that I'm not sure can handle it. And yeah, you don't really want to see a guy making excuses after losses. So it would be nice to see him grow up a little bit.
Who's like a comparison? Like, I mean, maybe like a basketball player, someone that looks the part, should be, like we keep waiting for. I don't know. I know I put you on the spot. Is there anyone that's like passes the eyeball test, but the results haven't been there?
I guess the most similar to me would be like an Andrew Wiggins. It's like they just
that's a good one.
and I hope he won a title, but I hope that's not the path that he takes. I hope that he finds a way to maximize all of it. But Andrew Wiggins, I am an NBA fan, was just like one of the best athletes and combinations of like size and athleticism that you could find in a player, and very, very skilled, and just never really had the desire to become, one of the all-time greats. I think the difference is that Holger does want to be a legend of the sport. So that's why I have a lot of faith in him to figure it out. I do think that like maybe having his mom not as involved as she is in his tennis life would help. And I think that what happened with Mouratoglou was a little bit concerning. Like, I just think that there are certain coaches where if they want to work with you, that means a lot. It means that you are, an unbelievably talented player that they view as Grand Slam champion in the future. And you want to listen to those guys and whatever they have to offer. So seeing that not work out the way it did was a little concerning.
And the last thing on that I would say is that he's got to start racking up wins to get, just rack up the wins. Don't make excuses. Find a way to get wins, improve your ranking, improve your seeds. and then make sure you get to those big matchups where you can prove how good you are. So
Yep.
yeah, still a lot of time, still very young, but time does run out. So we'll see. But we do like drama in a lot of ways. And you're talking about this too, the Michael Mmoh match against Mickelson in Delray. A little spicy. Weird that, Mmoh wins the first set, goes off the court. They have the interaction when they come back. 3 games for Mickelson, that's it. So unfortunately, Michael Mmoh couldn't finish. But American on American drama in Delray.
Yeah, I still don't understand exactly what happened because Mickelson said that Mmoh chirped him first. So you would have thought that Mickelson said something about him like faking an injury or something, but I don't really know what was said to start it. But obviously it was vindicated a little bit with Mmoh retiring because obviously leaving the court and then obviously retires in the second set. There was something going on, but it was strange timing and it was heated. I think that they were mature about it after the match though, and so they were going to settle it in the locker room, just with a conversation.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, right? Like it gets heated on court. I think I don't want to put percentage, maybe 95% of these get settled very quickly.
Yep.
You can be swearing at someone and then you just come to an understanding. Doesn't mean you're best friends, but you can figure out an understanding. So I think that's part of it. We love to see the passion. They didn't run into each other, which is good. So that's good. But yeah, this Delray tournament, I mean, Tommy Paul pulls out, but Fritz is still there. Fritz has been the standard bearer for American tennis. I wonder, I was going to ask you this too. I think Fritz is kind of looking for a result, which is weird to say because he's been so consistent. But Australia, followed by Dallas, tougher losses to some veteran and some good players. But I think he's looking for a result, which maybe is the reason why he's going to take this event seriously and could very well run to the title.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's in this tournament to win it, just kind of get himself going before the bigger portion of the season coming up. And I do think he's got a really good shot. It is a solid field. And, if he were to face Mickelson in the final, that'd be a very interesting match. We have seen Mickelson beat him before on an outdoor clay court. So, maybe the slower conditions would give the younger American a shot. But I do think that Fritz should win this tournament if he's completely dialed in. And I wasn't as disappointed in the Australian Open loss just because Monfils is such a good server, and there's no shame in losing to him when he's playing well. But man, like it definitely felt like an opportunity for him to make a deep run there.
Looking back at the match against Shapovalov in Dallas, again, Dennis redlined 3 top 10 players. Like when he's on, he's on. Tie breaks, though, I've been noticing, and you'd have the data on this, but that was another tie break where Taylor lost going away. Kind of shocking, and I think he would admit probably shouldn't happen with his serve and his ability to lose, like kind of get dominated in a tie break. So that'd be one area to maybe focus on.
For sure.
But we'll see. Nakashima yesterday beat Opelka in an All-American matchup as we record this. Opelka still on the comeback trail, looking pretty solid. We're just worrying about health. But yeah, Brandon Nakashima just seems like he's always in the mix and neutralizing that Opelka serve, especially going away in the third set. I think Nakashima is one where he's going to be in this position, right, where top players don't want to see him, but his ranking, for maybe a lack of consistency, hasn't risen like we thought it might.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting to see him kind of pull out a very close win like that because I think that's been the concern for him is like the amount of times he's played Ben Shelton in big matches where they're very close sets and he just comes out on the wrong side of it. That's what you want to see change is just him being a little bit better in key moments in big matches. So I thought it was really nice to see him beat Opelka. I mean, I'm not sure what was going on with Riley because it looked like the second and third set there was a huge dip both physically and emotionally. I think his head was down for most of those 2 sets and just wasn't moving the same way. It was finding the net a lot, but Nakashima did a really good job of just kind of blocking those serves back in. And the return game is what really needs to improve for him because he is such a good server himself.
It's the first time he's played a full season in a long time. Yep. So I think there's going to be dips that he's going to have to get used to and just kind of, hone his game, hone his conditioning into shape. But yeah, props to Nakashima. We'll get to some predictions, some previews going ahead, but I did want to mention Marseille too. The action over there, hard to keep track of everything. But Daniil Medvedev, Zico, just playing through it. That's the best way I can put it. Like just back on the court, issues, tough losses, but still in it, still fighting. That's the only way he knows how, right? To just keep playing.
Yeah, I mean, like the serve has gone away from Medvedev completely. And I think that that's really where the difference is between him and the elite version of himself a few years ago, where, you rack up very, very easy holds and then you put pressure on the returner, on the server with your like elite returning game. Eventually you're going to break them just because it's very difficult to manage that, stress during a match. But I think that now that he is not serving as well, it's just really hard for him to grind out wins. But man, like seeing him try to do it is fun. I know that he was on the wrong side of one last week against Bellucci, but it would be good to see him kind of win this tournament and just figure it out. I know he's made a coaching change himself, but I don't know. Do you think we're going to see a return to top five Medvedev?
Top five, maybe not. So I've gone back and forth on this. You're right about the service point. And you're right about, we're talking about another part of this too, that guys are playing him differently. Figure it out is kind of an overplayed, maybe overblown way to put it, but they're adjusting to him. And now it's on Medvedev to adjust to the adjustment. Because if he keeps going the way he's gone, the answer is no. Emphatically no. He will not be a top five player.
Yep.
It's also, we have to consider the field around him. So if we're going to move him out consistently, who are the guys that are going to be in there permanently? And we might have our answer now, we might not. But I think for Medvedev, playing matches the way he knows, his body seems to have held up. The serve's got to get better. He's got to be able to adjust to guys finishing points, dropping him, maybe move his return position. I don't want to say he's a stubborn guy, but he seems set in his ways. So Jill Savard and him have worked together for so long. I think he's going to need an outside voice, though. I definitely think someone added to the team for a new perspective, because Novak Djokovic, we keep coming back to the standard, was all about outside perspectives. And I think that's what Medvedev needs now.
Yeah, and I think it has been rumored, and I mentioned him before, but I think even Anisimova will be very interesting because he overhauled, Djokovic's serve and made that an elite weapon again when that got away. So if he can work with Medvedev and get him back to holding at 85% or so, then that would just be massive and give him a shot again. So I would be interested in seeing if he picks up the phone and makes that call. Simone, they're so similar as players, and I'm not sure what they could even add to his strategy.
Like his main coach, Savard, they've done a great job. You keep him around, that's your guy. Totally get that. But then you bring in somebody else. And he expends a lot of energy too. And if we're talking, like, it's two different questions, right? Is he getting back to the top five? Is he winning another major? I think it's more likely top five than major right now, because to run through 7 best of 5 matches. I mean, even that Australian Open match, which was insane, and he was up 2 sets, but it's tough, especially as you get older, to play this much tennis and still have stuff left in the tank.
Yeah. And it's funny. The Australian Open match is kind of like a completely different person. Like, he played lights out aggressive tennis because he was so tired that he knew he had to win those 3 sets right away, or he had no chance. So I wonder if like the next version of Medvedev is striking a balance between that and, the defensive ability that he has shown throughout his entire career. But yeah, I would agree with you. The top 5 is more likely than another major, but coming up on this summer, with the uncertainty surrounding Sinner, I'm sure a lot of guys are viewing this maybe as a chance to win a Grand Slam.
Well, that Aussie Open was also Sinner before he won a major, so maybe nerves were more of a factor too, pointing that out. Yeah, Medvedev, bad luck again. And I hope Sinner isn't suspended. We'll see what happens, but bad luck for Medvedev if he's suspended during RG and Wimbledon, not hardcourt tournaments. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on Marseille before we look at the other tournaments? I know Sonego's in there. We've got Humbert, some other players.
I mean, I'm a weirdo, so I guess I would say Medvedev. I just think is a really impressive player with just a definite top 50 talent, and I would like to see him kind of put it together. I think he's another one where maybe the mental side is holding him back a little bit. He runs a little bit hot-headed, but just a crazy, crazy talented player, and we saw him beat Holger in a big Davis Cup match, and I just think that that's a player to keep an eye on.
Yeah, he's a good one. Humbert rushing off the court with a bathroom emergency situation was pretty relatable to a lot of people that could just pick up the signs.
Yeah,
that was funny. Also, was funny to see Bublik honor Gasquet, given his thoughts on retirement tours recently. It was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Bublik match he obliterated his racket like very early in the match and then came back and won it straight.
Yeah, he did. Interesting guy. I think, and Sonego's another one too, right? Like having the run in Australia. He's somebody else that I wonder about consistency.
Yeah.
Not to say that, look, he could be very dangerous in a lot of these tournaments for years to come, but to really improve your ranking, you got to go in week out and just keep racking up wins. So
Yeah.
We'll see. Other thoughts maybe as we wrap this one up here. Delray, you said like Fritz seems like the driver, but you think a Fritz Mickelson final could be what we're looking at?
I think so. I think Mickelson should beat Nori today. I think he has a little bit too much weapons for Nori. And Nori, obviously, very, very good at this tournament. I believe he's won it before and just
Mhm.
loves a slow hardcore tournament. We've seen that at Indian Wells, but I do think Mickelson kind of likes it as well because it gives him a little time. And just, I'm really high on Mickelson now. I think that he's an awesome player to watch. So I would love to see a Fritz Mickelson final. Yeah, I mean, no other thoughts on the other tournaments.
Well, when would we get Zverev and Fonseca? I'm not looking at the draw. Would that be a
I think that
semi
would be I think that'd be a
final?
final.
That's just
I think
something I've thought about. It's quite, I mean, you can't do this. We talked about it yesterday, right? Where I was like, oh, Fonseca, Holger. And then, of course, we
yeah.
knew that wasn't going to happen. But
Well,
those two playing each other would be interesting.
that Rune and Fonseca, I would have loved to see because we
Yeah.
talked about it a little over text. Just, I think that those are the two guys that you're looking at maybe competing for that third spot after Sinner and Alcaraz moving forward. And I think right now the consensus would be that it'd be Fonseca, but I bet you that Holger Rune does not agree.
Well, there's the mental side too, and it's Zverev, older, but like when you start playing guys that are younger than you, there might be some like I don't want to say insecurity, but there's okay, this is a new kind of pressure. Like
Yep.
these guys are trying to chase me. And Holger, say what you want about him, this is the first time he's so young. He burst onto the scene ahead of a lot of his peers. Like a lot of his peers he beat to this spot. So now we're talking about the next gen coming up saying, no, your time's already done. So
Yeah.
that's the part where I'm always curious to see them adjust to playing someone younger than you. So that's what I think on that term. And then the women's final, we'll see Ostapenko in a good position, obviously in that final, but we'll see. I mean, do you think she just keeps it going and just continues her Middle East dominance?
I kind of think that the winner of the other match has a pretty good shot. I think if Alexandra comes back and wins, she'll beat Ostapenko because I think there's a little bit of like a levelness to her game that would just be tough for Ostapenko to overcome. But I do think Ostapenko would outslap Anisimova.
What a final. So
that would be great.
Anisimova's up a set right now on serve early in the second. By the time you listen or watch this, you'll know the result. But yeah, just ball striking.
Yeah.
Which I will say that it's funny to look back and think about this, but 3 years ago I was in Chicago and it was, when they got the event, I think it was a 500 at the time when, COVID rearranged some stuff. And you see the practice courts for this women's event. And if you didn't know anything about tennis and you saw ball striking, the two best, hardest hitters that I saw that day with a loaded field were Anisimova and Camilla Giorgi. Just hitting the ball, not just thumping it.
And you just saw in Madison Keys that you can win a major like that. So I think Keys obviously plays a little bit more just level headed, and I think she has the ability to cover the baseline a little bit better than Ostapenko does. But I do think that you can get hot and make a run. So it's not something to just discount.
And we can't it's great having Ostapenko in this, even if you're annoyed by her at times, even if she's annoyed by herself at times, having a new personality. And there's nothing wrong with the boring straight man, a straight woman and all this that just doesn't show a lot of emotion. But it's good to have somebody else that's different, that's just odd. And that's why I hope Medvedev, that's why I hope Holger, all these guys continue to be characters in this ensemble cast.
Yeah.
Last thing I have for you, though, Zico, we talked about this too. I think it's a good place to end on for a few minutes. ATP players that we would be backing out for the long haul outside of Alcaraz and Sinner. Like, how do you attack this question? If I put parameters on it, let's say for the next 7 years, this is a tentative 7-year discussion. So through 2031-ish range. So we're not going full decade, but everyone knows who the top two are. After that, though, you got to weigh potential, you got to weigh prime, and who you think can actually rack up results. So why would you attack this, and who would your picks be?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I think that I still think Holger wins a few majors, and I think that we could talk about the younger generation of Fonseca coming up, and I think Holger's got 3 years before he has to worry about that because he is 21, turning 22 soon, right? I just think that the game is so good that eventually he'll make the changes he needs to make to whatever it is with his coaching team, with his mom, and just he'll figure it out mentally. Just I think that a player with his ability to just win in so many different ways just figures it out. But Fonseca probably wins a couple majors as well. So it's those two for me when you're looking at the two players outside of Sinner and Alcaraz. I believe Mensik is very, very talented. And I just kind of think that the forehand is a problem right now. I'm sure that he'll figure it out too, because look, he's a big, powerful player. But
Yeah,
man, it's funny. It's all the players have leaky forehands.
you're slotting him into the Burdick position.
Yeah,
is what you're doing. You're just like, he'll be there. He might make a final or two. And it's tough to win majors. I mean, that's what we've proven. Even though we're not going to have a big 3 era where they win all the majors, we're going to have major dominant players. It's going to be tough to win these. I interpreted it a little differently, and I'd ask you first, of all the majors, maybe surfaces too, which one do you think is going to be the most up for grabs?
I think it's going to be grass.
Yeah, so
I think
we're lockstep there.
Okay.
So my answer is reflecting on who do I think could win a Wimbledon.
Yeah,
and I almost would agree. I think Holger's up there. I think he's someone that I think could play on grass, even though he's older in age comparatively. I think Fritz at Wimbledon can do well. Like, I think that could be an answer too, even though it'd be like, 27 to 34, 35. He's someone there. I mean, Fonseca, yeah, that's an easy like layup. Like, this is a guy that should be able to adjust his game homogeneously. But, Ben Shelton's name hasn't come up. I think he's a ways away from really honing everything. And when I say a ways away, it could be 2-3 years, but you're still in the prime of your peak years then. So he's someone that it's like a stock you don't even look at for 3 years. Just buy it, put it away.
I should have mentioned Shelton because it's funny. I don't think he has like the overall game, but I do think that his ability to play big matches and just, just how good he is under pressure, that will eventually result in a slam with his just power. Maybe he could be a guy that wins Wimbledon, gets hot with his serve and finds a way. But one player I will say, because you mentioned Berdych, I wouldn't be surprised if this generation of that is Musetti, who I just think is so good on every surface and still very young. And I could see him just going deep at every major and potentially never winning one. I hope that's not the case for him. I really like him and hope he does break through and find a way, but he's so talented and not really mentioned with these other guys. And I do think he will be there for a very long time.
Hot shot king right now, probably takes the cake there. Yeah, and you can even add Mickelson to that. Like, he moves pretty well if he figures it out on grass. I think that's where we got to look at too. But yeah, for long-term success, Fonseca's up there. Mensik looks good. I mean, it's the guys
doesn't Petchy Pericard win a Wimbledon?
Boy, that's a tough one. If there was an indoor hard court major, I'm all in on that. It's I love Petchy Pericard. I think return numbers have to, unless you're like an Isner level, which even for Shelton and Pericard, to get to Isner's level of accuracy and precision with aces is different. I think that it's tough to play the way Petchy Pericard does for 7 straight matches, knowing that the competition in theory is going to ramp up.
I think it helps him that I think he's a little more athletic than those guys and a little more coordinated, but you're right. Like, the returning numbers are just absolutely terrible. I think he has like a break percentage of under 5% right now. Yeah.
And Fees is another one too, where the athleticism's there. There's been some health things. I wonder, I respect the hell out of Demon Hour and players like that, but Fees strikes me as somebody, seems like he can have more weapons than Demon Hour when he gets to his peak level, but you have to work so hard to do what you do out there that I just wonder in a major how you hold up after 7, given the injury stuff. When you see injury stuff early, it doesn't, give you a great feeling. But then again, Nadal proved us all wrong. So
yeah. And I think Fees is he's one where I think that he's got a lot of weapons, but I think there are guys with bigger ones. And I just don't know what really is going to make him stand out and find a way to beat these elite players at the highest level.
Well, Zico, this was a blast. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It's Zachary Cohen. We can find you on VSIN. We can find you on tennis.com, betting columnist, and we can also find you on Tennis Bets Live, which will be coming back in a few weeks. Anything else to promote or plug before I let you go?
No, I mean, I have daily tennis bets up at vsin.com. I do them during the big tournaments for tennis.com. And looking forward to talking to Mitch on Tennis Bets Live.
Yeah, I can't wait. We got the big run coming back, North American, got the Sunshine Double, so it's going to be good. That's Zachary Cohen. Thanks again for coming on the show, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
That was Zachary Cohen. My name is Mitch Michals. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. We're on all your platforms. Just go to Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, wherever you get your shows. Leave a nice rating, a nice 5-star review, and subscribe wherever you get your shows. We're back next week. Got a couple episodes lined up. Check out all the video episodes as well on YouTube. At Mitch Michals is the channel, and follow us on social media. So for Zachary Cohen, I'm Mitch Michals. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast, part of the Believe Network. Thanks for watching or listening, and I'll talk to you soon.